Hello, Tech Pros, episode 144.
If I was starting a business, I think the number one thing that I would do is get familiar with LinkedIn and use it to grow your network.
Welcome to the podcast where I chat with professionals who are getting the job done using technology 7 days a week. Each week, we start with Motivation Monday. Tuesday is about productivity, Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and Sunday, being unplugged. All right, let's get started.
Hello, Tech Pros. This is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to introduce our featured guest today, Adam Wallschlaeger. Adam Wallschlaeger.
Any one of those three works.
Adam W. Happy Thursday, Adam W.
It is a great Thursday today. I think it's technically Wallschlaeger, but I've heard about a million different interpretations, so anything works.
As I said many times on this podcast, as I jack up many, not just names, but just common everyday words. You know, I was born in Texas, I was raised in Oklahoma, and now I live next door to Mickey Mouse. And so there's no telling what I might mispronounce it at any given time. So yeah, that's
you try. So that
I try.
That's great.
Adam Wallschlaeger.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do the W. Just Adam W.
Adam W. Adam started his own consulting and training business 3 years ago, seeking to help business professionals and job seekers use LinkedIn to accomplish their goals. LinkedIn is his primary area of expertise, but he also helps people start their own businesses. He trains people on website development, social media, blogging, podcasting, and sales development. He also hosts a podcast called Unsubscribe from the Cubicle. Heck yeah, where he interviews entrepreneurs in order to find their roadmap to success. Adam, welcome to the show, and I love the vision. I love the support. I love what you're doing with your podcast, Unsubscribe from the Cubicle. That was my dream for many, many years, and I know that's a lot of my listeners' dream as well, is, they're probably got their headphones on, cranking out code or patching servers together or doing whatever, and yeah, it's just like, why? Why are we still here in this cubicle?
Absolutely. I mean, and really, it's the $1 million question. I mean, if you're comfortable and happy working in a cubicle, that's fine. One thing I try not to do is ever, criticize it too much. I mean, I obviously love to make jokes, and as we talked about earlier, we've both watched Office Space and the movie and The Office, the show, and there's a lot of very humorous things about the office life. But the time that it hit me that I needed to make a different choice was when I was a recruiter, and my boss was kind of explaining the compensation plan. Apparently, I didn't understand it prior to being hired, and it was, okay, if we bring in a $10,000 sale, half the money goes to the person that found the client or the applicant, and the other half goes to the recruiter that found the job. So if you were the recruiter that found both of them, you got all of it. So I said, well, that's great. I mean, I can make $10,000 on any given sale. And as we discussed it more, I realized, no, it's you don't get half and half. It's if $10,000 comes in, the owner, gets half right off the bat. So he gets $5,000. And then the other half gets split. So it went from the opportunity of, thinking I would either make $5,000 or $10,000 to $2,500 or $5,000. And the reality as a new recruiter, you were like, lucky to have one side of it. So it was $2,500. And, I said, oh, okay, well, that's not as good as I anticipated, but okay. And I kind of casually asked him, why he should get paid. And I don't even know how I did it, but I did it in kind of a, non-accusatory way. And he said, oh, well, I take all the risk and I have to do kind of, the paperwork. And he made it sound like he had all of this extra labor and it wasn't something that I'd want to do. And that's fine. I think there's a lot of people out there that they have zero interest in running a business, doing the paperwork, being responsible for the outcome, taking the risk. But I think just in his language, he kind of made it sound like it's very few people could do it. And that's kind of been my mission, is to at least get people thinking about how they could impact their world, and whether it's starting their own business or having their own side gig. And it's very, very possible.
Yeah, and it's, there's a lot of those things that you can just outsource, right? You can hire other people to do the accounting. You can hire other people to do making decisions on what your logo looks like, or whatever you're struggling with. If you're saying, I don't want to go out and be an entrepreneur, I love being an employee because I don't have to take that risk. But let me tell you, there's just as much risk in being an employee. I was laid off 3 times in 12 months. And it wasn't like, oh, Chad got fired because he sucks. It was these companies had massive layoffs. 2 of them shut down the entire office that I worked in. It was like, okay, well, what are you going to do? There's a lot of risk no matter where you are.
Yeah, and it's obviously a very scary thing to move from what feels like a safe and secure job with benefits and that sort of thing to moving into a life of an entrepreneur. That being said, once you get over to that side, I couldn't agree more. Now looking back at the corporate world, I actually find that to be an even more risky proposition because I myself am no longer in control of the process. If the company decides to make cuts, if they're not making money, if they're reorganizing, I can't tell you how many reorganizations I've been through where, rightfully so, certain sections get cut, certain people get cut, and or you're not, are you producing or you're not producing? At least this way, I have the control over my own security and my opportunity to make money, and that feels a lot more in control than kind of at the whim of a boss or a company.
So we're going to have to totally bring you back for an Entrepreneurship Saturday to dive down into the weeds, seriously, of like if I'm a worker thinking about starting my own freelance business, or I want to build a startup and hire my own employees to do all the things for me, or whatever journeys or visions that people have, right? Because there's a lot of different ways to do it. But today is Tech Thursday on Hello Tech Pros, and it's all about the nuts and the bolts and the bits and the bytes and the data and all that kind of stuff. So just a quick question for you, Adam. What's the most critical technology that's in your job role today?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I think a lot of people, when they start a new business, they tell you need to have a website. And for me, I wanted to kind of do that myself. And like you said earlier, you can hire that out to other people. But I think your website and or social media is kind of a good place to start. And it can be kind of murky waters, knowing what to do, when to do. But I think having experience and at least understanding of how I use social media, how I use, the web to take care of my business and grow my business is one of the first questions that you'll want to ask. Anyone that is starting their own business, they need to get the word out. They need to tell people about what they're doing. And as you and I talked about, whether it's your blog or your podcast or your website or your business, using technology to leverage that is huge. I think one of the things that people can get really stuck in is really, really getting in the weeds as it relates to that technology. So what I do, at least in my business, is try to use technology only to advance what I'm doing, as opposed to make it be all about technology. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I try to kind of limit the things I do. So for example, social media, I focus most of my attention on LinkedIn, and I don't use the other tools as much. But I like to have at least an understanding of all of them. So I've either bought or used or tried or had conversations about, pretty much every single tool that you could ever use to grow your business.
Yeah, we can definitely, I can definitely get into tool overload. I love kind of being a little bit like Batman, although I don't have the budget that Bruce Wayne does, but I can collect a lot of potential awesome utilities for my Batman utility belt and then never use them. So what I hear you saying is we need to really, really focus on the things that are most important and then double down on those things, and not necessarily like try to invest in every single little widget or gadget or plugin or module or social media experience that there's out there.
Absolutely. And I could tell you how much time I have spent, getting to know every single tool out there and how much money that has actually made me. It's not a great ratio, I'll tell you. What I'd prefer, and if I could do things over again, I would focus on where, if it's a business, for example, where the money is and what I can do that to get paid for helping other people. And instead of looking at tools first, I look at tools and systems second. At first, you're going to be doing a lot of the grunt work and you're going to be doing it all yourself. So you had mentioned you can kind of outsource stuff. But at first, you really want to get an idea of everything your business is about. There's a really great book that's called Rework by Jason Fried. And one of the things that he talks about is he prefers to learn everything himself first before he outsources it. And the reason they do that is then he knows what challenges to expect, how much time things should take, how much money they should cost, and whether or not it's a good use of his time versus someone that can do it and is a kind of a specialized professional in that area.
Gotcha. So I think this is very applicable regardless of if you're in a startup, you're owning your own business, running your own business, or if you're an employee or a manager that's an employee for somebody else's company, right? Which is, especially us that are in technology, that are in IT, sometimes we cause a lot of problems for the business because we're so tied up about the tech. Like, do we go with Java or do we go with .NET or do we go with HTML5 or do we go with native like Objective-C on iOS and all these technical questions, instead of saying, what's the real business goal that we're trying to accomplish? Where's the money coming from? And let that be the driver for the technology choices that we make.
Yep, and really, when I think of technology, I think it's something that can exponentially grow what we're already doing. But I think most people will fall into the same trap that I have: is we'll make it about the technology first. I mean, really, it's technology, like anything, can be a tool, or it could be neutral. It could be good. It could be bad. Just because you've used an app, a tool, a piece of software, and it's been good for you, doesn't necessarily mean that everyone should be using it.
Yeah, there's so many people that I talk to all the time, not just on the show, but just in life in general, that's goals are, I want to build an app and make a bunch of money off of it, or I want to build a startup.com thing and make a bunch of money off of it. It's like, well, great. What problem are you going to solve? I don't know, but I really, really love this new framework and it's awesome. Or this data model is incredible. And I'm like, well, hold on there, Sparky. Like, you have to actually be solving some sort of problem, either a consumer problem for individuals or a business problem for businesses. But you have to have a process that can solve this problem regardless of what technology is in place. And then you put the technology in place that, like you said, I love the way you said it, it's an exponentially grow what you already have in place.
Exactly. Yep. And that's where I usually start with people. And right away, if you want to see where someone is at with their technology, just ask them to look at their phone and see how many apps they have on it. I had a girl one time that, I think I was showing her something on my phone, and she saw me flipping through. And on my iPhone, I probably had 5 or 6 pages of apps, and not only 5 or 6 pages, but I had multiple where I had them grouped together in one little box with 6 apps. So right. I think the tool that I was using at the time, and I don't want to, send people into app oblivion, but there's this app called Apps Gone Free, and every day they give you, maybe 4 to 7 different apps that are normally paid apps that you can get for free. Some of them are kids apps, some of them are non-related, but occasionally you'll find one. This is the perfect thing. Well, what I was doing was I would download each one of them and say, oh yeah, this looks interesting. Maybe I'll use this, and I would add it to my list. Well, the problem is, and I'm a big believer in simplicity and in focus, mostly because I felt like I did it the wrong way. And what happens is our mind gets so full with all these tools, and then we start to kind of feel a little bit of guilt or stress from not using them, that what happens is we end up not using anything well. So I'd much prefer someone, whether it's, in this case, let's talk about starting a business, figure out what you're like you said it perfectly, what problem you're trying to solve, how you're going to go about solving it, and then picking a tool that will actually, or a piece of technology that will actually significantly drive your goals forward, as opposed to let's find everything that could possibly help. Because there's a cost reward. There's a great story of a a farmer that he had purchased a piece of equipment to bale his own hay, I think it was. And he thought, well, yeah, there's definitely a benefit to doing that. He saves money by making his own hay versus buying it from a, someone that does
Farmer.
that. I don't know what that's called. But as he really broke it down, he didn't take into account all the time that it took to do it himself, all the costs that went into it, what the tractor was doing to his land, the gas, the fuel, all that sort of stuff. And in the end, that tool actually wasn't benefiting his company as much as he thought it was when it comes to the bottom line. So he then went back to kind of outsourcing it. So using the framework of this tool could help my business or can help my business isn't necessarily the only question you want to ask, because there's other factors that go in. It needs to be a tool that is actually increasing your bottom line and not, killing your expenses or time.
Gotcha. So when we're thinking about, okay, we're going to start up a business, and we need to get some tech or need to get some tools in order to help us do the business. What I hear you saying is focus on the tools and tech that are going to help you actually do that business, and not tools and tech that are going to help you build the business, if that makes sense, right? So let me give a prime example.
Sure.
So like my business right now is podcasting, right? So I'm creating content daily. I'm publishing content daily. I'm building a network of audience and guest members who have ties into to technology and business, and I'm helping people understand like the people skills of technology, right? And so it's not just about the tech, but it's also about communication, relationships, and all these kind of things. So that's my business. That's what I'm working on. My business is not logo design. So me going out and buying Photoshop so that I can design my own logo so that I don't have to go out and hire a graphic artist, right, is completely a waste of time and money, right? Because I'm not skilled at it. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I don't know the first thing about color selection or the best use of white space or what. I don't even know what questions to ask, right? Yep. I don't know anything about logo design, but I may think, oh, it'd be cheaper if instead of hiring a logo designer that's going to cost me $500, $5,000, whatever that amount is, to just do it myself. And so I'll buy. So maybe I won't buy Photoshop. Maybe I'll get some other tool that's cheaper than Photoshop, and I'll do it myself. And that way, I don't have to invest that money. But what I hear you saying is that is going to cost me more in the long run because I'm wasting my time in an area that's not actually adding value to the business. It's not adding value to the podcasting. It's just a thing that I could outsource or find somebody else to do it.
Absolutely. And that's a really good example. I literally had that exact same thing. I had learned about a tool called Canva, which is very good. It's very good for people that aren't professional, graphic designer people to go and make, like you said, whether it be logos or backgrounds or graphics. And I pulled it up and I was like, okay, I got to really learn this. I got to figure this out. And I started doing it, and I said, hold on, what am I doing? I mean, this will probably take me hours and hours and hours just to learn it. There's much better places I could be spending my time. So, I went to, I don't know if you've ever talked about this in the past, but things like Fiverr.com or Upwork. Right. There's people all over the world that, you can pay X amount of money to have those things done. They're already professionals. They already have the tools. They can do it much quicker, much faster. And I think that's a much better way to go. I think where the problem stems, because this is a struggle for almost everyone I talk to, myself included. I think one of the biggest problems is people don't really know themselves all that well and what they're best at. I mean, I used to hear that all the time. Oh, do what you're best at. What's the best use of your time? A lot of it is I don't really know what I'm best at. I mean, I'm kind of a jack of all trades, or I'm kind of good at this. It isn't so much about what you can do. It's what you're the best at and what you're going to have the most positive impact in, and that's what you want to focus on. There's another good book by Michael Gerber, and it's called The Entrepreneurial Myth. And what he does is he has it's helpful for people that are really struggling this, especially if you have a business that's larger than kind of a one person show. He has you draw out a kind of an organizational chart, and the CEO, COO, and the different managers and different roles, and draw out your whole organization. What would it look like 5 years from now? That sort of thing. And then in each one of those boxes, not only do you have the title, but you also have all the different responsibilities in each one of those boxes. And at first, if you are a solo business owner, you put your name in all of those boxes, and that's where you start. But eventually, the idea is to replace yourself in each one of those roles with someone else, and whether that's one person doing multiple jobs or one person doing each one of them. And it just helps break down mentally, how that business is going to be able to grow and how you can focus eventually on what your main thing is.
Awesome. Which should be growing the business, right? Which should be building the business and scaling it out to where it can support all of these employees and have the revenue coming in to support that kind of business. That sounds amazing.
Exactly.
I'm going to have to go check out that book. So that was The Entrepreneurial Myth by, what was the author's
his name is Michael Gerber, and
Okay.
it was great. He's very structured, and it's good. Anytime you read a book on a topic, it's good to know that there's a lot of value in it. It's not the only way that it can be done, but his is very structured way of doing it. There's obviously other ways to do it as well, but that particular example I thought was really, really helpful. And you basically said it without saying it, but the owner of the business is responsible first and foremost for working on the business as opposed to in the business. And I think that's a big place where most business owners get caught up, is doing the work, physically doing the work as opposed to building the business.
Gotcha. That makes so much sense now. So, Adam, in just a moment, I'm going to ask you about maybe what are the decisions, or what's the framework for making the decisions early on when we're first starting out our business on how we decide. I understand we draw the boxes and we do the thing, and we plan out 5 years ahead, and we see which things we should be working on, which is grow the business. But at the very beginning, we have to do all those things. We have to make all those decisions, and that means we're going to have to get a lot of tools to do them. So I'm going to ask you about maybe what are the first steps that we do as a solopreneur or as a freelancer for starting our business. But first, we're going to take a quick break and thank our sponsors. This episode of Hello Tech Pros is sponsored by Minio Cloud Storage. Minio is a cloud object storage server for developers and DevOps written in Go. The Go programming language is the emerging language of choice for modern cloud infrastructure projects, and it allows Minio to be highly concurrent and lightweight. Minio is Amazon S3 compatible, built with microstorage architecture in mind, but at its heart, Minio is simple, scalable, and supported by a passionate developer and user community. In episode 89 of Hello Tech Pros, I talked with A.B. Periasamy, one of the founders of Minio, about the importance of community support and recruiting software developers who are as passionate about their product's code as artists are of their art. Check out that episode at hellotechpros.com/89 and check out Minio Cloud Storage at minio.io. That's minio.io. Are you new to podcasting? Are you looking for a fast, high-quality, yet budget-friendly podcast production team? Let TransSource Media take care of you. With a team of professional audio and video editors, writers, and graphic artists, they can help you build your podcast from planning, post-production, and platform submission. Using only cutting-edge software and studio equipment, they're here to make each and every show sound at its best. To get a free quote, please visit www.transsourcemedia.com or send them an email at marketing@transsourcemedia.com or call them at 209-505-5693. TransSource Media, transforming businesses through the power of multimedia. Okay, we're back with Adam Wallschlaeger. We've been talking. Yeah, did I nail it?
You did. Sorry, I got excited.
Oh, yes. Listeners, you have no idea. Like, I literally was practicing this name before we hit record for probably, what was it, Adam? It was about 36 hours. Something like that. It seemed it was painful, so painful to Adam to hear his name mispronounced so many times. We're gonna tell you what, we're gonna put that at the tail end. Stick around after the show, at the very, very end, after all the credits, after everything. I'm gonna have my my editor folks put that some of that discussion of me torturing his name at the very end. So stick around for that. But for now, Adam, we've been talking to you about, as a business owner, especially if we're in technology, but we want to start our own business. We want to start a startup, like a tech startup, or we want to start a freelance business. And we're in a place where at the beginning, we're all on our own, right? And because we're technical people, we have this tendency to want to do all the things, like DIY, do it ourselves, and collect all the tools and technology in order to do that. But what you were saying right before the break is it's really, really important to focus on growing the business and driving the business forward, and not doing all the things and building all the tools or buying all the tools to do it, right? You need to think about, okay, there are different departments later on, 5 years, 10 years in this business's lifetime, right? You're going to have other managers or other directors or other people owning these areas of responsibility and owning those tool sets. So you need to think about outsourcing them as soon as possible. So in the very beginning, what are some steps or what are some methodologies we can use to decide what are the critical things that I'm going to be doing, that Chad's going to be doing, and the technology decisions that I'm going to have to make, as opposed to what are the things that I need to outsource and get somebody else to do?
Great question. And, I'm a little bit of a unique case because my business is essentially helping people build their businesses. Mm-hmm. So, kind of like you with your podcast, you need to know a wide range of, technologies and topics and things like that. So I'm a little bit of a different case but I got lost in learning all the tools because it's essentially an infinite proposition of tools and technologies, at least in my world. Mm-hmm. But getting started, and people told me this all the time, and I had a hard time really understanding it because I love diving into the tools and I love diving into the technology and all the different ways these things could make your life better. It got so bad that my to-do list, as you would call it, was really just a massive list. And maybe I might even send it over to you as a joke that you can show the listeners. Cool. It was probably 70 bullet points long, and really every single bullet point was just a different tool. It was learn this, figure out this, and I never would have actually made any money figuring out each one of those things. When I absolutely need that tool, then I can kind of come back to it and learn it, or have someone learn it for me and implement it. We just get it's almost an addictive type thing where we get this high from learning a new tool and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But some of my closest friends, and this is why it's really good to be in some sort of mastermind or have some sort of accountability, is someone to ask you those tough questions. What are you doing today? What's the one thing you're doing today to make money for your business? I think you've probably heard it said, I'm sure most listeners have, that only like 20 or 10% of businesses, something crazy, are still going 3 years from when they start. And I think the biggest reason is we don't spend enough time asking ourselves the question, what am I doing to make money? And really, from a business perspective, the two main ways that you make money are either making phone calls, or whatever that looks like. It could be, on LinkedIn doing networking or out and about, and then talking. So making calls to some degree, and then having conversations with people that are open to what you are selling or what you're offering. And so I would say for someone that's just getting started, I would actually put in place not even technology first. I would first set up accountability. And by accountability, I mean finding other people that are either doing something that you're interested in or something close to what you're doing, or even, you'd be surprised, even competitors nowadays are very available and open. I know in my business, we haven't talked about it too much, but I do LinkedIn training and sales training for people. You would not believe how many of the top LinkedIn trainers have taken their time, whether it be to interview on my podcast, talk to me, have a conversation, give me tips and tricks about how to make my business. It's not like the old days where you had, Best Buy and Circuit City and those sorts of things. There's so many businesses and there's so many niche opportunities that people are really willing to help each other out. So I would start by, putting accountability in place and having people, though, actually ask you tough questions. But as far as the technology is concerned, you first have to come up with the question of, and you said it earlier, is what problem am I solving and how am I going to solve it? And once I've done that, I know a guy that we both like, Pat Flynn, wrote a book called Will It Fly? And he has a really, really cool, simple process of going through and kind of seeing what's currently out there as far as competitors and products and services, to get a feel for not only what's out there, but what problems aren't being solved and what's not being serviced in that community. So once you have those two things, it's about, okay, now how do we get this out? And really it does come down to, first and foremost, sales and marketing. I think websites are a very important thing, and I talked about that earlier, but there's plenty of businesses now that are having no website at all, or something like a lead page is just a simple landing page. I could go on Facebook if I had a problem I'm solving, and either a product or a service that solves that problem. I could just set up Facebook ads and target the market that I'm looking to target, and collect those leads as they come in, reach out to them, see if they're open to having a conversation about what me or my company does, and if they are, setting up a time to talk to them about that, and moving the sales process forward.
Awesome. Great stuff. Adam, we're definitely going to have to bring you back another time to dive deep in the weeds on maximizing our LinkedIn exposure and how businesses can really dominate on LinkedIn in order for lead generation or recruiting or all the amazing things you can do with that tool. But for now, can you part us with any final words of wisdom that you have for the audience, the best way that we can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye.
I would say, and this is a little bit what we just talked about, if I was starting a business, I think the number one thing that I would do is get familiar with LinkedIn and use it to grow your network. I know a lot of people say that your network is your net worth. And not everyone has the time to go to networking groups, to build all kinds of relationships in person. I think we can get actually tied up. I used to have about 9 coffee appointments a day and not really make any money. So I would use LinkedIn. The example I use, and I said I'm in Minneapolis. There's almost nobody in Minneapolis that's a somewhat business professional that's on LinkedIn that I'm not one step away from. And I don't have a ton of connections. I have a lot, but if there's someone that I want to meet, if someone's a perfect target, in my opinion, I can either call them or email them or message them or send them an invitation on LinkedIn. But I can always get at least one person that knows that person, and I can see that on LinkedIn, that can make an introduction. And if I can get in front of people based on that kind of warm referral, it really helps grow your business exponentially in a hurry. So I would highly recommend doing that. And as far as me, my business, my website is directlinkconsulting.com if people are interested in LinkedIn help. And then the other thing we talked about is I have my own podcast as well called Unsubscribe from the Cubicle. And you can find more about that at unsubscribeFromTheCubicle.com. We interview entrepreneurs and business owners, helping deconstruct who they are and what they've done and how they've done it, and hopefully replicate their model.
Adam, thank you so much for joining me on Hello Tech Pros today. I really value your wisdom and honesty about, it's sometimes Tech Thursday is not about the tech. Sometimes it's about the vision and the business and really the relationships and connections that you make in order to grow that business. And I appreciate this relationship with you. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks, Chad. It's great being on the show. So glad I met you, and thanks for having me.
You bet. Tech pros, just think about this for a minute. Sometimes we talk tech way too much. Sometimes it's not about the technology. Sometimes it's about the problems that we're trying to solve, and we don't even know, maybe we're thinking about the problem, meaning the data problem or the scalability problem or something like that. But regardless of if you're an employee or you're on your own, what's the real impact that you're trying to make on society? What's the real impact that you're trying to make on business? And is that really a technical problem, or is that a relationship problem? Is it communication problem? Is it talking to people? Is it inspiring people to do an action or complete a task? Is it a resource availability problem, right? So think about how would you, if the I don't know, the EMP struck and all the technology exploded and we didn't have access to the podcast and the interwebs and the LinkedIns and the source code and all this kind of stuff. If you had to do it with stone tools, right, and just wheeling and dealing and talking to people, how would you solve that problem? Now, focus on that for a little bit and then figure out what are the right tools to scale it. You've been listening to Adam Wallschlaeger, and I'm Chad Bostic. And until next time, take care. The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com/144. Do you use Slack for team communication? Join the Hello Tech Pros Slack channel at hellotechpros.com/Slack. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, subscribe to this channel, and check back tomorrow. This has been Technology Thursday, but tomorrow my featured guest and I discuss people and communication. On Saturday, we talk entrepreneurship, Sunday, being unplugged, Monday, motivation, Tuesday, productivity, Wednesday, leadership, and back again on Thursday to discuss technology once again. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.